Every time I start a financial plan for a client that's approaching retirement, I start in the exact same place, and that's with the government-backed pensions, or what I call the foundational income sources. Foundational income source is not market linked and is reliable. For us as Canadians, there's actually three incomes that we have access to. Most, if not all of us, will have access to CPP and OAS, which we'll go into further. Some of us will also have access to GIS, or Guaranteed Income Supplement, and that's what this video is about, the three government-backed foundational income sources and how they kind of interact with each other. Let's get started. I'm going to start with OAS because it's the easiest to calculate how much you're going to get. We're going to talk about CPP later and how much you actually pay into that, but OAS you don't pay directly into old age security. And the calculation is just simply based on how many years after the age of 18 did you live in Canada. And the max number that they're calculating there is 40. So you take the number of years you've lived in Canada after age 18 and you divide it by 40, and that's a percentage, and that's how much you'll be getting from old age security. As of right now, the maximum benefit from old age security, if you're between the ages of 65 and 74, is $718.33. If you're 75 plus, the maximum you're getting is $790.16. What's also important to know about old age security is that there are thresholds for what's called the pension recovery tax, or more commonly known, the clawback tax. So if you're over a certain threshold, you're going to get clawed back 15 cents on the dollar, up to eventually 100% of all your old age security. This is where we can actually see how our tax system is set up better for couples than it is for an individual, because a couple has income splitting available to them at this point, and they can spread that income between the two of them and fall below the threshold, whereas a single person has no ability to do that splitting and can be a little bit more exposed to this set of thresholds. As of right now, the threshold is between $86,912 all the way up to $142,609 if you're between the ages of 65 and 74, or $148,179 if you're 75 plus. One other interesting thing to note is that the numbers I'm providing now are starting as of now in July of 2024 through the end of June 2025. And it's not going to be based on the income that you actually receive in that time period. It's going to be based on the tax year 2023 in the past. So old age security is always a year and a half in arrears. So if you're right now earning a healthy income in 2024, it will not actually affect OAS until July of 2025 through June of 2026. Now, just like CPP, which again we'll talk about in a minute, there is some advantage to actually delaying your OAS. It's not as robust as delaying CPP, which is 0.7% per month. With OAS, it's 0.6% per month, which is still pretty nice. You are not allowed to start it before age 65. So 65 is when you can start it. 70 is the latest that you can. And besides the benefit of getting an additional 0.6% per month that you delay, if you happen to be doing an RRSP meltdown strategy where you're aggressively pulling taxable income on purpose from 65 to 70, it may be worth delaying. Outside of a meltdown scenario, it's very rare that I do recommend delaying OAS, and I would never or almost never recommend delaying OAS and not CPP, which again, we'll get into in a moment. So let's get into CPP now, or Canadian Pension Plan. Now, CPP is the one that you are actively paying into. It's the one that's a nuisance on your paycheck. You're paying 5.95% of your income up to $3,867.50 per year into CPP. And if you're a self-employed person, it's double that if you choose to pay into that. Now, this is where things get really, really divisive. For self-employed people, there are definitely two camps. There's the camp that we would take income as primarily dividends and you really push your taxable income down as far as you can, and you would not pay very much into CPP. Or there's the camp where you would pay yourself at least enough to maximize your CPP. And where the differing of opinion comes in is which one is more beneficial to you in retirement. Camp, push your income down as far as possible, is not suggesting that you're not investing for your future. They're simply saying that you take that almost 12% that you would be putting into CPP and you're putting it into an investment that by the time you get to 65 or 70 is worth a lot of money. There are pros to that. Absolutely, right? You have assets there. It's more beneficial to an estate if you happen to pass away there. And there's a few other ones as well. There's a lot of very, very valid arguments for why that is a good route to go. Now, I sit in the other camp. I sit in the camp where a self-employed person should be paying themselves a salary at least high enough to maximize their CPP contributions. Why? Because I love to build financial plans on reliable, non-market linked income sources. And CPP, for most of us, not all, but for most of us, it's the biggest source of income like that out there. And I like shifting the risk off of an investment into CPP to cover that foundation of my cash flow in retirement. So there are definitely valid arguments for both sides. I've argued this with my own accountant. We've talked about this before, so there's no one that's right or wrong. It's just simply a very divisive kind of part of being self-employed, and it is something I'm going to explore further in a future video. Now, you've heard this a million times. There are advantages and disadvantages to taking CPP late or early. If you do take CPP early, which is anytime before your 65th birthday, you will be penalized 0.6% per month that you do early. But if you're rewarded on the other side of 0.7% up to a maximum of 42% reward. Now, again, it's no secret, I'm a big fan of CPP delays, a much bigger fan of CPP delay over an OAS delay. Sometimes it makes sense to do both. Sometimes it makes sense to do neither. It's all case by case. But when I go into a financial plan, I'm going in with the lens of logically, to me, with my set of logic, it makes sense to delay. So is there something that can prove otherwise to me in this scenario that would then have me advising a client earlier? Otherwise, I'm likely going to be advising a delay to 70 or 68 or something like that. The third government pension that's provided is GIS, or Guaranteed Income Supplement. Now, this is actually designed for lower income households in Canada to make sure that we have a bare minimum livable standard provided from the government to those that qualify. It's important to note that there are thresholds around this one that are tested, and the thresholds are different if you're a couple, if you're an individual, depending on how old your spouse is, things of that nature. It's important to know that's there. It's also important to know that you must be taking OAS to have access to GIS, not CPP, but you must be taking OAS as well. So those are the three government-backed foundational income sources available based on eligibility to all of us in Canada. It is critically important that you have a good understanding of these three, which you qualify for, how they interact with each other, how they affect each other, and how they affect your financial plan when you transition into retirement. So if this is something you want to explore further within your financial plan with me, there will be a link in the description down below that'll come directly to me. Until next time, keep planning.